My mother-in-law has been a storm cloud over my marriage since the day we got engaged. She didn't slam doors or scream. No, her weapon of choice was silence, cold glares, and heavy sighs that spoke louder than words ever could. If I were to describe her in one sentence, it would be, she is the queen of making you feel small without ever raising her voice. When my husband and I decided to get married, we were older, me at 35, him at 37. We thought we had escaped the drama that often comes with youthful relationships. We were wrong. The moment he slipped the ring on my finger, her claws came out in ways I wasn't prepared for. She was the type of mother who believed no woman would ever be good enough for her son, and she wore that belief like a badge of honor. At first, it was small things. She would forget to greet me when I walked into the room, speaking only to him, ignoring my presence entirely. If I tried to join a conversation, she would pause, look at me, then continue as if I hadn't spoken. She would text him daily, reminding him how much she missed him, how lonely she was, how she just wished things could go back to how they were before. Before me. Before our life together. She would call late at night, crying about nothing, pulling him into long conversations, while I lay in bed listening to him whisper comfort to her, telling her he would visit soon. I tried to understand, I really did. Everyone told me that's just how mothers are, it will get better. It didn't. As our wedding approached, she escalated from silent disapproval to outright sabotage. She refused to participate in any planning, telling family members that she was too heartbroken to help her son throw away his life. She told people she didn't want to watch her son marry a woman who would take him away. She would call him and cry, saying she felt like she was losing her child, that he didn't care about her anymore, that I was changing him. She made him feel guilty for moving forward in his life, for growing up, for choosing me. The first time I confronted him about it, I saw the conflict in his eyes. He loved me, but he was so used to her emotional blackmail that he didn't even realize it was wrong. He tried to reassure me, telling me she would get over it, that she just needed time, that she didn't mean any harm. But she did mean harm. Maybe not in the way people think of villains in stories, but in the way of a person so wrapped up in their own loneliness that they're willing to destroy anything that threatens their comfort. Every family gathering became a test of endurance. I would sit there, smiling politely while she made passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my family, how some people just don't understand how we do things. She never said my name when she spoke, referring to me indirectly as she or her. I tried everything. I baked her favorite desserts, invited her for lunch, sent her photos of our wedding plans, hoping to include her. Each gesture was met with a cold shoulder or a backhanded comment. Don't stress yourself, dear. You don't know how to make it the way we like it. Oh, I'm sure your family is excited. I just hope they aren't too different from ours. I guess I'll have to get used to sharing him now, won't I? I kept telling myself it would get better after the wedding, that once she saw how happy we were, how well I cared for him, she would let go of her resentment and learn to love me. But looking back now, I realize that was the lie I told myself to survive the constant discomfort. I convinced myself to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to swallow the hurt and keep smiling, because that's what a good wife does, right? But you can only swallow so much before you start choking. And it would take many more small cuts before I realized that love does not require enduring abuse, no matter who it's coming from. My mother-in-law made our wedding feel like a day I was stealing from her. She didn't wear black, but she may as well have. She was draped in bitterness, so thick you could feel it in the air, suffocating every moment that was supposed to be joyful. Planning the wedding was a battlefield I didn't know how to fight on. Every suggestion I made was met with disapproval that she whispered behind my back, never to my face. She would call my husband at odd hours, saying things like, "You don't need a big wedding, it's a waste of money. Are you sure this is what you want? You know, once you marry her, nothing will ever be the same." She said these things with the kind of guilt that drips like slow poison. My husband, bless him, would try to protect me, telling me only the parts he thought I needed to know, shielding me from the worst of it. But I could tell. I could see the heaviness in his eyes every time he hung up the phone with her. She made it clear she would not help, would not attend planning meetings, would not contribute, but she still wanted to control the narrative. She would tell relatives how sad she was, how her son was moving on without her, turning our wedding into her personal tragedy. And then the day came. The morning of my wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in my dress, hands trembling, heart pounding with a mixture of joy and dread. My bridesmaids buzzed around me, fixing my hair, straightening my veil, telling me how beautiful I looked. But all I could think about was her. Was she going to show up? Was she going to cause a scene? Was she going to ruin this day, too? And then she arrived. She walked into the venue like a martyr. Eyes red, face set in a somber expression that screamed to everyone how much she was suffering. She refused to greet me, refused to take photos, refused to smile. She sat in the front row with her arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, looking everywhere but at me. Minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, my husband was pulled aside. I could see them, just outside the door, her hands clutching his, her face inches from his, as she whispered something to him. He looked pale, eyes darting toward me, torn between her and the life we were about to start. Later, he told me what she said. "You don't have to do this, you can still change your mind." My stomach dropped when he told me, even though we were already married by then, even though we had already kissed and danced, and smiled for photos that felt forced with her shadow hanging over us. When I walked down the aisle, I tried to look at him, to focus on the love in his eyes, but I felt her gaze on me like a curse, heavy and disapproving. Every step felt like I was trespassing on something she believed belonged to her. During our vows, I heard her scoff, a quiet, sharp sound that cut through the air like a blade. When we kissed, she looked away. When we were announced as husband and wife, she didn't clap. At the reception, she sat alone, refusing to join in the celebration. She turned away when people tried to speak to her, making sure her sadness was visible to everyone. She refused to dance, refused to eat the cake, refused to be a part of the day in any way that might suggest she approved. And I, in my foolish hope, kept trying. I approached her with a piece of cake, offering it with a trembling smile. She looked at me, her eyes cold, and said, "No, thank you." She didn't even look at the cake, just at me, like I was something unpleasant she had to tolerate. The night ended with my husband and me in the car, driving away as husband and wife. My dress bunched up around me, tears streaming down my face, as I tried to keep from sobbing out loud. He held my hand, rubbing circles into my skin, whispering, "It's okay, we're okay." But in the back of my mind, I knew something I couldn't admit out loud. We weren't okay. Because I had married him, but I had also married her disapproval, her resentment, her belief that I was unworthy of him. And I didn't know how to fight a war I hadn't chosen. My mother-in-law didn't need to raise her voice to break me down. She did it quietly, piece by piece, during the first year of our marriage. After the wedding, I told myself that maybe now she would accept me. Maybe seeing how happy her son was would soften her edges, would make her see that I wasn't taking him away, but building a life with him. But that was just another lie I told myself to survive. Every holiday became a performance of forced politeness and suffocating tension. She would walk into our home like it was hers, inspecting everything with that critical eye, making small, dismissive comments that stung more than outright insults ever could. "Oh, you put the forks on this side. We've never done it that way. This casserole, interesting taste. You look tired. Marriage is a lot, isn't it?" She never said it outright, but the message was clear. I wasn't good enough. Not for her son, not for the family she believed she was losing. And my husband, caught in the middle, would try to keep the peace. He would squeeze my hand under the table when she made her remarks, give me those pleading eyes, silently asking me to let it go. Just for now, just to avoid another fight. And so I did. Over and over, I let it go. I swallowed the hurt, the humiliation, the anger. I would cry in the shower where he couldn't hear me, wipe my tears and plaster on a smile before stepping out. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over, that it was easier to keep the peace. But it wasn't just the holidays. She called him almost every day, sometimes late at night, needing help with things she could easily handle, complaining about her loneliness, about how empty the house felt, about how much she missed him. "You don't call as much anymore. I guess you're too busy with your new family now. It's just so quiet here without you." Each call was a reminder that no matter how much he tried to build a life with me, she would always find a way to pull him back. And he tried, God, he tried. He would tell her he needed to go, that he was with me, that he couldn't drop everything to come fix a light bulb or move a box. But her guilt was relentless. And sometimes he would give in, telling me, "I'll just be gone for a bit. She really needs me." He would leave, and I would sit in our quiet home, staring at the door, wondering if this was how it was always going to be, if I would always be second place to her loneliness. Sometimes she would show up unannounced, letting herself in like it was her right, bringing food we didn't ask for, rearranging things in our kitchen because this is better, criticizing my choices, making comments about how she used to do things for him. "He doesn't like his shirts folded that way. You're using that detergent. His skin is sensitive, you know." He's always loved this dish. You don't make it for him. And I would stand there, forcing a smile, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white, biting back the words I wanted to scream. I started to dread weekends, to dread holidays, to dread the sound of her ringtone on his phone. Each visit, each call, each comment chipped away at me until I felt like a stranger in my own home. But I kept trying to convince myself it was normal, that this was just part of marriage, that it would get better. I thought having a baby would change things, that becoming a mother myself would earn me her respect. I didn't know then that motherhood would only give her a new battlefield to fight me on. They say a baby changes everything. I thought it would change her too. I thought that when she saw me, swollen and tired, carrying her grandchild, she would finally see me as family. I imagined she would soften, that her harsh eyes would warm, that she would offer the kind of support I desperately needed as a first-time mom. I thought she would finally love me, or at least stop resenting me. But I was wrong. When we told her we were expecting, she looked at me, then at my husband, and forced a smile so tight it was painful to watch. Oh well, that's wonderful. That was it. No hug, no joy, no excitement. Just a tight-lipped, forced smile before she turned to my husband and started talking about how tired she was, how she wasn't sure she could handle the stress of becoming a grandmother so soon. She made my pregnancy about her. During my pregnancy, every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every ultrasound became another opportunity for her to remind me that she knew better, that she was the real authority on what was best for her son and his child. Are you sure you should be eating that? You're gaining a lot of weight, be careful. In my day, we didn't need all these fancy tests. She would call my husband, asking for updates about the baby, pretending I wasn't even part of the conversation. She would come over, uninvited, with bags of baby clothes I hadn't asked for, some of them old and stained, insisting that these were his when he was a baby. The baby should wear them too. When I tried to set boundaries, she would pout and complain to him, telling him I was keeping her grandchild away, that I was too sensitive, that I was making everything difficult, and I, heavily pregnant and exhausted, felt like I was losing the battle before it even began. When I went into labor, she showed up at the hospital, even though we had asked for privacy. She sat in the waiting room, texting my husband, demanding updates, demanding to come in, demanding to see the baby first. I remember holding my baby, fresh and tiny against my chest, tears streaming down my face, overwhelmed by the moment, and hearing my phone buzz repeatedly with her texts. When can I come in? I'm outside the door. Let me in. My husband, torn, asked me softly, can she come in for a minute? And I, raw and bleeding and shaking, said yes, even though every part of me wanted to say no. She walked in, eyes wide, and for a moment, I thought I saw softness there, as she looked at the baby. But then she reached for him, pulling him from my arms without asking, holding him like he was hers, looking down at him with tears in her eyes. My baby, she whispered. Not our baby, not even her grandbaby, but her baby. I lay there, empty and invisible, watching as she rocked him, whispering to him, ignoring me completely, as if I hadn't just gone through hours of labor to bring him into the world. And in that moment, I realized that having a baby didn't change anything. It only gave her a new way to take up space, to push me aside, to remind me that in her eyes, I was just the woman who happened to give birth to her son's child. And I realized, as I lay there in that hospital bed, that I was going to have to fight for my place in my own family. My mother-in-law treated our home like it was hers, and our baby like he was hers too. In the weeks after we brought our son home, everything felt fragile. My body was healing. I was learning how to keep a tiny human alive. And sleep was something I only caught in moments. Half an hour here, an hour there, between feedings and diaper changes, and the endless swirl of worry that came with new motherhood. I was raw, inside and out, trying to figure out who I was now, trying to protect the tiny, warm bundle I cradled to my chest, while holding onto the last bits of myself that hadn't been completely swallowed by exhaustion. And that's when she started showing up. No warning, no courtesy text, no phone call, just the sound of her car door slamming outside, the heavy knock at the door, or worse, the jingle of her spare key in the lock, before I even had time to get dressed. She would walk in, calling out loudly, "It's just me," as if that made it okay. She would head straight for the baby, pulling him from my arms with a smile that was meant for him, not me, while I stood there in my milk-stained robe, hair a mess, heart racing with the violation of it all. "You look tired, dear, let me take him. You need a break, let me help. This house is a mess, you need to get it together." She would say these things while rocking him, cooing at him, sitting in my chair in the nursery, while I hovered nearby, arms empty, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Sometimes, I would try to take him back, saying softly, "It's time for him to feed." But she would hold him a little tighter, bouncing him as if I wasn't speaking. "Oh, he's fine, he's not hungry yet, you need to rest." Rest, as if I could rest while she was there. Rearranging the baby's clothes, commenting on the bottles I used, criticizing the way I folded his blankets. "You know, we never used bottles. I breastfed all my babies. He shouldn't be wearing this, he's too warm. You're spoiling him, picking him up every time he cries." Every visit left me feeling smaller, weaker, more like a failure. I would cry in the bathroom after she left, clutching the sink, looking at my pale, tired reflection and wondering why I felt like a guest in my own life. I tried to talk to my husband about it, telling him how I felt, how her visits were suffocating me, how I needed space to figure out how to be a mother on my own. But he would look at me with tired eyes, running his hands through his hair, saying, "She's just trying to help. She means well. She's excited about the baby." And I would bite my tongue, swallow my tears, and let it go, because arguing felt too heavy, too loud in the tiny space of our home, where the baby was finally sleeping, and I was too tired to fight. But each unannounced visit, each hour she spent holding my baby while ignoring me, each time she corrected me or made a comment about how she did things, I felt a piece of me slip away. And deep down, I started to fear that I was losing something I could never get back. My mother-in-law didn't just invade my home, she invaded my marriage. Every visit, every comment, every unannounced drop-in planted a seed of tension between my husband and me. Seeds that grew into arguments whispered late at night, so we wouldn't wake the baby. Arguments that left me crying quietly while he sat in silence, head in his hands, torn between the two women in his life. At first, I tried to explain gently. "I need more notice when she comes over. I'm feeling overwhelmed when she takes the baby without asking. I need to feel like this is our home." He would nod, looking at me with those tired eyes. Eyes I loved, eyes that made me want to keep the peace. "I get it, I'll talk to her." But nothing changed, because she was good at what she did, spinning her guilt and loneliness into a web that my husband felt trapped in. She would call him after visiting, crying softly into the phone, telling him how hard it was to see her baby moving on, how she felt left out, how she was just trying to help. "I'm sorry if I upset her, but I'm just trying to be there for you. I feel so alone sometimes. Don't let her take you away from me." And he would listen, his jaw tightening, torn between wanting to comfort his mother and wanting to protect his wife. He would hang up, and I could see the heaviness settle on his shoulders, could feel it in the silence that filled the room afterward. It felt like there was always a third person in our marriage, an invisible presence, sitting between us on the couch, lying between us in bed, standing in the kitchen while we tried to talk. When I told him I needed boundaries, that I couldn't keep living like this, he would sigh, rubbing his temples. "She's just trying to help. She doesn't mean any harm. Can't you just let it go?" But I couldn't let it go, because every time she walked through our door, I felt like I disappeared a little more. Every time she held the baby and called him my baby, I felt like I was losing him, like she was staking her claim, reminding me that in her eyes, he would always belong to her. And I started to resent him. I started to resent the way he wouldn't stand up to her, the way he would look at me with pleading eyes, asking me to be the one to bend, to be the one to keep the peace, to be the one to swallow my hurt, so he wouldn't have to choose. I started to resent the way I was expected to endure, to smile, to nod, to be the good wife, while I was drowning in silence. There were days I would sit in the nursery, rocking the baby, tears sliding down my cheeks as I whispered apologies to him for not being stronger, for not being the mother he deserved, for not being able to protect the peace of our home. I felt alone, even when my husband was sitting right beside me. And the worst part was the guilt, because I started to wonder if it was me, if I was too sensitive, if I was the problem, if I was the reason there was tension in our home, if I was the one destroying the family I was trying so hard to build. But deep down, beneath the guilt and the exhaustion, a small voice was growing louder. "You deserve peace. You deserve respect. You deserve to be heard." And I didn't know it yet, but that small voice would one day become the roar that would finally break the cycle. The day I realized I couldn't keep living like this wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming match, no slammed doors, no sudden epiphany under the glow of a full moon. It was a quiet morning, the baby napping in his crib, the house finally still. I stood in the kitchen, clutching a cup of cold coffee, staring at the baby monitor, and I just felt empty. I was tired, bone-deep, soul-deep tired. And not just from the sleepless nights or the endless feedings. I was tired of being a ghost in my own home, of constantly bracing for the next unannounced visit, the next passive-aggressive comment, the next moment of being told, without words, that I was never enough. That morning, I sat down and wrote a list in my journal. I deserve respect in my home. I deserve notice before visitors arrive. I deserve to hold my baby when I want to. I deserve to be the mother in my own home. I deserve peace. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe it. When my husband came home that evening, I sat him down, my hands were shaking, and my voice was soft, but it didn't break. I need to talk to you. He looked tired, his eyes heavy with the weight of work, the baby, and the tension that had been growing like a silent storm between us. Okay. I can't keep doing this, I said, voice trembling but steady. I can't keep living in fear of when she'll show up, of what she'll say, of how she'll make me feel in my own home. I'm not asking you to choose between us, but I am asking you to protect me, to protect our family, to protect this family. He was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor, rubbing his palms against his knees. She's just trying to help, he said, the same tired refrain. She's not helping, I whispered. She's hurting me. I saw the words hit him like a wave, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his eyes flickered with guilt. And for a moment, I almost took it back, almost told him it was okay, almost slipped back into the silence that had become my armor. But I didn't. I need you to set boundaries with her. I said, I need you to tell her that she can't just show up, that she needs to call first, that she can't take the baby out of my arms without asking, that she needs to respect me as your wife, as the mother of your child. It felt like the longest conversation we had ever had, the silence between each sentence, filled with all the words we had been too afraid to say for so long. He nodded slowly, his eyes wet. Okay, he said, I'll talk to her. I didn't know if he meant it. I didn't know if it would change anything. But that night, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. That night, as I rocked our baby to sleep, I whispered to him, Mama is trying. Mama is learning how to fight for you, for us. And deep down, I was learning how to fight for myself too. Because setting boundaries wasn't just about keeping her out. It was about letting myself back in. I didn't know that a simple case of strep throat would be the moment everything changed. It had been a hard week. The baby was teething. I hadn't slept in what felt like forever, and the ache in my throat had turned into knives every time I swallowed. My body was screaming for rest, but as every mother knows, rest is a luxury when you have a baby depending on you. My husband decided to work from home that day to help, and for a moment, it felt like we were a team again. He made me tea, rocked the baby so I could nap for an hour, and whispered, just focus on getting better. It was the first day in a long time I felt like I could breathe. And then she texted. Not me, of course, she never texted me. She texted him, asking if she could stop by. He told her no, for once, he actually told her no, explaining that I was sick, that the baby was fussy, that it wasn't a good time. I thought that would be the end of it, until my phone buzzed with a text from her. Send him outside. No greeting, no how are you feeling. No is this a good time, just a demand. I blinked at the screen, the fever making my head swim, and I felt the anger rise, slow and hot, from the pit of my stomach. Why is your mother here? I croaked, looking at my husband. His face fell. He rubbed his hand over his face, looking tired and defeated. She said she needed to drop something off. I told her not to come, but you know how she is. Yes, I knew exactly how she was. She was the type who would show up uninvited, unannounced, unbothered by boundaries. Because her wants were more important than anyone else's needs. She was the type who would demand your husband's time, your husband's attention, even when you were sick and begging for space. I looked at him, feeling the weight of years of small wounds that had never healed, the silent humiliations, the ignored boundaries, the constant presence of her in every moment of our marriage, and something inside me snapped. I'm done, I said quietly. He looked at me, confusion flashing across his face. What do you mean? I'm done pretending. I'm done allowing her to bulldoze her way into our lives. I'm done smiling and being polite, while she makes me feel invisible in my own home. Tears filled my eyes, hot and unrelenting. I can't do this anymore. I won't do this anymore. He stood there silent, the weight of my words sinking in. She's your mother, I said, voice trembling, and I will never stop you from having a relationship with her. But I'm done forcing myself to be in the same room as her. I'm done sacrificing my peace for her comfort. And with shaking hands, I picked up my phone, opened our conversation. if you could even call it that, and blocked her number. It was such a small act, a simple swipe and tap, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had been losing bit by bit. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice small. "I'm protecting myself," I whispered. He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just sat down, head in his hands. The silence between us, heavy, with the reality of what had just happened. Outside, she waited in her car, unaware that her hold on me was finally breaking, unaware that the woman she had ignored and belittled for so long was finally saying, "No more." And as I lay back down, feverish and exhausted, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. After I blocked her, there was silence. Not the comforting silence of a sleeping baby, or the peaceful hush of a quiet morning. This was the heavy, thick silence of a house holding its breath, waiting for the next moment to explode. My husband didn't say much that day. He moved around the house quietly, caring for the baby, checking on me. But the air between us was different. He didn't know how to process what I had done, and honestly, neither did I. But deep down, I knew it was the right thing. Because the moment I blocked her, a weight lifted off my chest. It felt like I could finally take a deep breath without fear of the next text, the next unannounced visit, the next demand disguised as help. But the relief didn't last long. Later that evening, while I was feeding the baby, my husband's phone buzzed. I saw his eyes flicker as he read the screen, his jaw tightening, his shoulders tensing the way they always did when she texted him. He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of conflict, the fear of being caught between the two women he loved. "She's upset," he said softly. I didn't answer. I kept feeding our baby, focusing on the soft sounds he made, the way his tiny hand curled around my finger. "She said she was just trying to help," he continued, his voice hesitant, testing the waters. I looked up at him, my eyes tired but clear. "She wasn't helping," I said quietly. "She was crossing boundaries I've been begging you to set." He looked down, swallowing hard. "She said she doesn't understand why you blocked her. She says you're overreacting." A small, humorless laugh escaped my lips. "Of course she doesn't understand. She's never had to." Because that was the truth, wasn't it? She had spent her whole life getting what she wanted, walking over people's boundaries without consequence, believing that her wants were more important than anyone else's needs. And for so long, I had let her. I had let her invade my home, take my baby from my arms, comment on my life, and treat me like I was invisible because it was easier to keep the peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace. It's quiet suffering, and I was done suffering quietly. "I'm not asking you to take sides," I said, looking at him as tears welled in my eyes. "I'm asking you to protect me, to protect our family, to protect me." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. The love, the fear, the guilt. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "Then don't," I replied. Because it was that simple. I wasn't asking him to abandon his mother. I was asking him to stand beside me, to support me, to recognize that his mother's feelings were not more important than my well-being. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the baby monitor glowing softly beside me, listening to the gentle sound of our baby's breathing. My phone was quiet, no texts, no demands, no intrusions. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was reclaiming my life. But I knew the fight wasn't over. I knew there would be fallout. I knew there would be conversations, accusations, tears. But I was ready. Because the day I blocked her was the day I chose myself, and I was done apologizing for it. Blocking her was the easy part. Living with the aftermath was harder. The next few days were a blur of tension that settled into the walls of our home like a ghost refusing to leave. Every time my husband's phone buzzed, I could see the way he stiffened, the guilt flashing across his face before he tried to hide it. She was calling, she was texting, she was demanding to know why I had blocked her, what she had done wrong, why I was so sensitive. She never once reached out to apologize or to acknowledge the boundaries I was asking for. It was never about what she had done. It was about how I had reacted. Because to her, I was the problem, not her behavior. I overheard him on the phone with her one evening while I was folding laundry in the nursery, the baby gurgling softly in his crib. His voice was low, tense, as he tried to explain. "Mom, she's not trying to keep you away. She just needs space." Silence. Then her voice, shrill enough that I could hear it even from down the hall. "Space from me, I'm just trying to help. You've changed since you married her. She's turning you against your family." I paused, the tiny socks in my hands suddenly feeling heavy. The familiar sting of tears threatened, but I blinked them away, focusing on my baby's face instead, reminding myself why I was doing this. No, Mom, he said firmly, surprising me. You don't get to say that. She's my family too. That was the first time I heard him say it out loud, and it felt like something shifted in the air, like a line had finally been drawn. But it didn't stop her. She sent messages through his phone, asking if she could come over, asking to see the baby, asking when we would stop this nonsense. She posted vague statuses online about family who forgets who was there for them first, and how sad it is when daughters-in-law ruin families. People commented, offering sympathy, feeding her narrative of the poor, abandoned mother, whose ungrateful son had chosen a wife over his family. And for a moment, I felt the guilt creep in again. Was I ruining their relationship? Was I taking him away from her? Was I the villain in her story? But then I remembered all the times she had walked into my home without knocking, the way she had pulled my baby from my arms, the way she had made me feel small and invisible, the way she had ignored every boundary I had tried to set, every plea I had made for space and respect. And I remembered the promise I made to myself. You deserve peace. So I stayed firm. I didn't unblock her. I didn't reach out to explain myself. I didn't defend myself to the family members who whispered behind my back, because I didn't owe them that. I owed it to myself, to my baby, to my marriage, to protect the peace we were finally beginning to build. And slowly, things started to change. My husband began to see what I had been trying to tell him for so long. He noticed the way I slept easier, the way I laughed more, the way the tension in our home began to ease without the constant threat of her next intrusion. He started to understand that setting boundaries wasn't about punishment, it was about protection. And while it wasn't perfect, while there were still hard conversations and moments of doubt, we were finally moving forward. Together, because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to say, enough, and to mean it. The day I truly took my stand didn't look like a battle. There was no yelling, no chaos, no doors slamming. It was an ordinary morning, the baby playing on his mat, sunlight streaming through the curtains, as I sipped my coffee, still warm for once. My husband was feeding the baby while I folded laundry, and for a moment the house felt calm, like the family I had always dreamed of. And then his phone buzzed. I saw the way he paused, spoon in hand, the way his shoulders tensed before he set the phone down, face unreadable. It's her again, isn't it? I asked, softly but firmly. He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. She wants to come over, he said, not meeting my eyes. She says it's been too long. It's been 2 weeks, I replied, my voice calm, and she didn't ask, she told. He sighed, sitting down across from me, the baby babbling between us, blissfully unaware of the tension, threading its way through the air. I don't know what to do, he admitted. His voice small, she's my mom. I nodded, swallowing hard, my hands trembling slightly as I folded a tiny onesie. I know, I said, and I'm not asking you to stop seeing her. I'm not asking you to cut her off. I looked him in the eyes, letting him see the exhaustion, the pain, but also the resolve. I'm asking you to respect me, to respect us, to respect the boundaries we need in this home to be a family. His eyes glistened, and for a moment, I saw the man I fell in love with, the man who promised to protect me, to stand beside me, to build a life with me. What do you need? He asked. It was such a simple question, but it felt like the world cracked open, letting in light I hadn't felt in so long. I need her to call before she comes over, I said, my voice steady. I need her to respect it if I say it's not a good time. I need her to ask before taking the baby out of my arms. I need her to treat me like I exist, like I matter, like I'm the mother of this child and your wife. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks as he reached for my hand. Okay, he whispered, I will talk to her. And he did. That evening, he called her while I sat beside him, holding his other hand, the baby asleep in my arms. His voice was firm but gentle as he explained the boundaries, as he told her that things would need to change if she wanted to be a part of our lives. She's not keeping you away, Mom, he said calmly, but you need to respect our home and our family. I couldn't hear her response, but I could imagine it, the protests, the tears, the guilt, the same tactics she had used for years to get her way. But for once, he didn't waver. This isn't up for debate, he said, his voice quiet but strong. This is what we need. When he hung up, the silence in the room was heavy but different. It wasn't filled with fear or tension. It was filled with peace. I looked at him, and he looked back. And for the first time in a long time, we were on the same team. The days that followed weren't perfect. She called, angry and hurt, demanding to know why things were different, insisting she had done nothing wrong. She sent messages through other family members, trying to guilt us, trying to push back. But we stood firm. We didn't respond to the guilt. We didn't bend to the pressure. We didn't apologize for choosing our family, our peace, our mental health. And as the days turned into weeks, our home became a sanctuary again. We laughed more, we slept a little better. We learned how to be parents, without the constant shadow of her expectations hanging over us. And I learned how to look in the mirror and see a woman who was no longer afraid to take up space, to demand respect, to protect her peace. Because taking a stand wasn't just about her. It was about reclaiming myself. Didn't expect peace to feel so quiet. I thought there would be fireworks, a moment of triumph, where I would feel like a warrior standing victorious on the battlefield of my own life. But peace didn't come with a bang. It came slowly, gently, like the soft hush of dawn after a long, stormy night. It came in the way I could wake up in the morning and drink a warm cup of coffee while my baby played on his mat, laughter echoing off the walls of a home that finally felt like ours. It came in the way my husband and I could sit on the couch, close, without the tension of unspoken words hanging between us, without the fear of a phone buzzing and breaking the fragile calm we had built. It came in the way I could breathe again, deeply, without bracing for the next intrusion, the next demand, the next guilt-laced comment from someone who refused to see me as a human being deserving of respect. It came in the way my baby would reach for me, his small hands clutching my shirt, his eyes searching for mine and finding me there, present, whole, and no longer lost in the chaos of trying to please everyone but myself. And yes, there were still hard days. Days when she would call him, crying, demanding to know why things had changed, insisting she had done nothing wrong. Days when family members would whisper about how cold I was, how I was breaking the family apart. But I had learned to let those words pass through me like wind, because I finally understood. Protecting my peace does not make me the villain. Setting boundaries does not make me cruel. Choosing myself and my family does not make me selfish. It makes me a woman who refuses to shrink herself to fit into someone else's comfort. A woman who refuses to sacrifice her mental health on the altar of forced politeness and toxic family dynamics. A woman who is finally free, free to love her husband without resentment building quietly in the corners of her heart. Free to be a mother who is present and whole, not a shell of herself living in fear of judgment. Free to live in a home that feels safe, warm, and sacred. And as I rocked my baby to sleep one quiet night, the soft glow of the nursery lamp illuminating the room, I whispered to him, "Mama did this for you, for us." And for the first time in a long time, I knew I had done the right thing. Because peace, I realized, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of boundaries. It's the presence of self-respect. It's the presence of choosing yourself. Over and over, even when it's hard. Even when it's messy. Even when others don't understand. And as I lay him down gently, kissing his soft forehead, I allowed myself a small, tired but genuine smile. Because I was no longer surviving. I was living. And that, I decided, was worth everything. Please like, share with your family and friends. And subscribe to our channel for more stories.